Hello and welcome to FSD TV. I'm your host, Mark Sonny, and today I've learned that is it okay to say ku-hi? I'm not sure, but I know it's okay to say haiku, because today we're going to learn a little bit about haiku poetry from Jessica Erickson. So Jessica, take it away.
Hello, my name is Miss Erickson, and I'm so excited for you to join me for today's lesson. Today, we are going to be learning about haiku poetry in writing. First, I'm going to explain the elements of a haiku poem. I'm going to give you some examples of haiku poetry, and you're going to get a chance to write your very own haiku poem at the end. First, there's some items you're going to need to gather to complete this lesson. You're going to want a couple pieces of blank pieces of paper, a pencil, and something to draw or color with. You can use colored pencils, crayons, markers, watercolors, anything that you have around your house that you can use to color a picture. Let's get started. Haiku poems. Haiku poems are a form of Japanese poetry, usually about nature or the seasons. So usually when you think of haiku poems, you're going to think, what do I see outside? What do I see in nature? You might be reading about water, you might be reading about plants, or you might even be reading about animals. And you might even be reading about the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall. Another important element of haiku poetry is that it always has 3 lines. So these poems are really short, really quick, really easy to read. Line 1 always has 5 syllables, line 2 always has 7 syllables, and line 3 always has 5 syllables. So in a haiku poem, it's always 5, 7, and 5 for our syllable pattern. So if you can remember that, it'll help you write your very own haiku poem too. Now I'm going to show you an example of a haiku poem. Small raindrops on trees, bare branches during winter, spring is coming soon. So as you can see, my haiku poem is about nature and the seasons. Sometimes it's about one or the other, but this one is about both. So you can see we have trees, raindrops, branches, but also you see winter and spring. So these are important elements of a haiku poem that are included in this one. You can see that there are exactly 3 lines in our haiku poem, which is exactly what we want. The first line has 5 syllables. Small raindrops on trees. So you can see I numbered the syllables for you here, but you can count them. Small raindrops on trees. So we have exactly 5 syllables for our first line of our haiku poem, which is exactly what we want. For our second line, we have bare branches during winter. So if we count the syllables, bare branches during winter, you have 7 syllables in the second line of our haiku poem. For our third line, we have 5 syllables again. Spring is coming soon. So you can see we have 5 syllables in our third line of our haiku poem. So we have followed the pattern of 5, 7, and 5. This is important to remember when you read or write haiku poems. And you may notice that the amount of words in a haiku poem line does not matter. So our first line, small raindrops on trees, has 4 words, and that's okay, as long as it has 5 syllables. So you'll notice different amount of words in each line. It's okay, as long as you follow the syllable pattern. Okay, now we're going to think about writing our very own haiku poem. I want you to close your eyes and imagine springtime. What are some things that you see? What are some things that you hear or things that you feel? How is spring different than the winter time? What are some things that you might notice about this season that is different from all the other seasons? Once you imagine that, I want you to go ahead and open your eyes and jot those ideas down. You can write them down, you can write some words down, or you can even draw some pictures of things that you imagined in your mind. You can see that I already did this here. I went ahead and made a circle map because a graphic organizer is a perfect way to kick off our writing. Whether you're doing a narrative essay or a poem, a graphic organizer really helps to get your ideas on paper and helps you start thinking about your writing. So I put spring in the middle since this was our topic, and this is what we imagined. And here's some words I thought of. Sunshine, rain, happy, flowers, new life, bright colors, plants, and animals. Your words might be some the same as me, but you'll probably have a lot of different words as me. And that's okay. We don't need to have the same words. What is something that you thought of that's maybe different than what I thought of? After you make your circle map, you're going to go ahead and use these words to help you write your haiku poem. So I'm going to show you the example of my haiku right now. So my haiku, I gave it a title, and I decided to call it Springtime since this was our topic, and this is what we're thinking about with writing our haiku poem. I wrote, "The sun shining bright, brightly colored flowers bloom, and new life all around." So I want to show you how I took words from my circle map and helped make them into my haiku poem. So if you look here, you see I have the word sunshine. That was something that was really important for me to get into my poem because when we go from winter to spring, we're really thinking about how the sun is coming out and it's shining bright, better than it was in the winter. So at first I thought, I want the sun shines so brightly outside, but then I realized that's a lot more than 5 syllables, and my first line can only have 5. So I had to change it a little bit, and I wrote the sun shining bright. And if you count the syllables, you'll notice the sun shining bright. I have exactly 5 syllables. So this is going to work for my first line of the haiku poem. For the second line of my haiku poem, I was thinking about flowers. How I wanted to put something about flowers blooming, flowers growing, but then I also realized I can add bright colors to this statement, which I also have in my circle map. So I wrote, brightly colored flowers bloom. And if you count the syllables here, you'll notice we have 7 syllables, which is important for your second line of your haiku poem. You want exactly 7 syllables, which I have here. For my last line, I knew I wanted to incorporate the words new life. I wanted to incorporate new life because in springtime, we often think about growth, things rejuvenating, starting over, maybe. So I wanted to include that in my poem. And you'll notice my last line, new life all around, has 5 syllables. So if you look at my poem, you'll notice a couple of the characteristics I talked about from a haiku. First, I have a title. Next, I have 3 lines, exactly. And then last, I follow the syllable pattern of 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, and 5 syllables in the third line. So when you're writing your haiku poem, you're going to want to think about that too. Now that you've seen my haiku poem, it's your turn to write your very own haiku. So remember, if you haven't already, close your eyes and really imagine what it feels like to be in spring. Maybe think about being at your school. Maybe think about being in the park. How does spring feel different than the winter, summer, or fall? Also, when you're writing your haiku poem, maybe you want to add an illustration. So you can see here that I wrote the title of my poem, Springtime. I wrote my 3 lines of my haiku, and I drew a picture that matched the words in my haiku. This is kind of what I imagined when I closed my eyes and imagined springtime. I have my brightly colored flowers growing, I have my big sunshine, and I have a butterfly and a bee just kind of showing life buzzing around and waking up in the springtime. After you write your haiku poem about springtime, maybe you could write some other ones. My favorite thing about haikus is that they're fun for kids and adults of all ages. I remember learning about haiku poems for the first time in 2nd grade, and I've enjoyed reading and writing them ever since. I will always remember my teacher teaching me, and I went home and practiced all these different haikus. Maybe you and your siblings can make haikus together. Maybe you can each write one and you can put it together in a book with some illustrations. Maybe you can write a haiku about each season of the year. So now you'll have one about spring, but maybe you can add them to make a book about winter, spring, summer, and fall. Maybe you can even imagine yourself on vacation in your favorite place you've ever been. Maybe you're going to think about being in the mountains or the beach. If you close your eyes and imagine it, what does the mountains or beach feel like? What does it sound like? Or what are some things you see? So if you do this process of imagining it, writing down and making your haiku poem, I'm sure you can make some amazing haiku poems. You can also imagine yourself in a place maybe you've never been before. You can look up this place, look up pictures and videos, see the sights and sounds, and imagine that for your very own haiku poem too. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about haiku poems. I really enjoyed teaching you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, for that exciting poetry lesson and making haiku cool. All right, that's all we have time for today. Thank you for joining us. Again, I'm your host, Mark Sonny, and come again to FSD TV.